What NFC North wide receiver depth chart do you need to figure out to win your leagues? Is Rob Gronkowski worth where he is going in Football Guys drafts? And how should FFPC main event drafters handle Nick Chubb right now? Plus, KFFSC Commissioner and NFL player agent Ferrell Elliott helps us preview this year's edition of the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, offers some FFPC advice, and more. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Gerzakin addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I am, as always, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to talk about whether there is a shift in value among the Bills running backs, how you should be drafting or not drafting, handcuffs, and Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship Commissioner Ferrell Elliott drops by to tell us what's in store for this year's KFFSC main event and to talk about some FFPC draft advice for all of you as well. Shout out to the chat room right now. If you guys have any questions, post them right in there. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, you can do so at HSFF Hour, at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak. Ferrell is on Twitter at KFFSC. Facebook.com/HSFF Hour is where to reach us. If you want to chime in and talk with us tonight, please do so. 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVER. You can also email the show at the inbox at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you do indeed have any questions for us, send them in now. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, tweets, and emails in the fantasy feedback segment coming up later on in the show. Want to thank our producer, mutual friend Rob, and my best friend and audio engineer Bryce for working extra hard this time of year. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it. All right, so a couple of things I want to get off off my chest right at the top here, in case you weren't aware. If you're in the FFPC main event, the slow drafts have been going on for a while. The live main event started today. We had several in the books. We're going to be filling several more each and every day until the start of the NFL season, which I believe, and the Sunday of the NFL draft season, which I believe is September 13th. So all the way up until September 12th, main events going on each and every day. If you're already in, hey, we got a great deal for you. Save $400 off each additional main event team. It's the best deal we've offered all season. It's the best deal you're going to get all season long. Save $400 off each additional team in the FFPC main event. Remember, the 2020 Football Guys Players Championship, that is filling up fast as well. This is a contest that we've actually expanded this year, both in the team cap and in the prize pool, and that one's actually filling up again. It's like the 8th year in a row or whatever. It's filling up faster than we imagined. So make sure you are not getting left out in the cold. Get in on that now at myffpc.com. Terminator Tourney also filling up $25,000 grand prize. I believe that resumes tomorrow. No Terminator drafts tonight, but there is one tomorrow. And basically almost every single day up until the start of the NFL season. Best Ball Slim Leagues, Best Ball Standard Leagues, Classics, Terminator Satellites, Super Bracket, all more at myffpc.com. I don't know if you Dynasty owners saw the email from the commish, Dave Gerzak, today, but the slow Dynasty drafts are getting set to close for the 2020 season. In fact, I believe it closes in 8 days. So if you want to get a couple more startups in, now's the time to get them, myffpc.com. All right. Couple of programming notes here. Number one, Jimmy Wagner on the final RotoViz high-stakes lowdown of the off-season. We will be going to a weekly format starting after week 1, but he is the interview that we just had. RotoViz.com/podcast is where you can check it out for the latest RotoViz high-stakes lowdown. Good pros versus Joes info there, and for a guy who's drafting a lot of FPCs and main events, you get it right from the horse's mouth there. We had some audio issues last week Friday, and as a result, I unilaterally declared we're going to put out a bonus episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, which we did late Wednesday night. 2 guests on that one, both pros versus Joes drafters. Scott Kobe, the FFPC Joe, and, of course, Fantasy Football Mastermind's own Mike Nazarick on that show. They talked about those drafts, some main event strategy, and more from some guys who have had some pretty good experience, pretty good success in the FFPC main event over the years. And you're going to want to listen all the way through because Mike Nazarick dropped in a bonus code for his website. So if you want to get hooked up with ffmastermind.com, I'm not going to tell you at what point in the podcast it was, but it's in there somewhere, and you can get hooked up with one of the longest-running fantasy advice sites out there. In fact, they're going on almost 3 decades worth. Good stuff there from FF Mastermind himself, Mike Nazarick. All right, without further ado, let's get into tonight's rundown. I want to thank Football Guys, Roto World, and Rob for putting this together for us tonight. And, Dave, I don't know about you, I think the NFL season it has really snuck up on us this year because of lack of a preseason. And I was under the impression that when there was no preseason games, I was like, well, we're probably not going to get a whole lot of information. I could not be more wrong because there's been a lot of information, a lot of updates from a lot of the teams around the NFL. And it's been great because it's radically changing ADP. It's radically changing the way we look at FFPC drafts this year. And let's kick things off here in the middle of Florida, which is where seemingly everything's going on right now. Bruce Arians, the Buccaneers head coach, said third-round rookie running back Keyshawn Vaughn could contribute as a kick returner in week 1. Greg Allman on Twitter reported this. This is a guy who was touted as the first – he was the first Buccaneers draft pick this year in the 2020 draft. And then they went out and added LaShawn McCoy, who's going on, I believe, 51, 52 years old at this point. Arians already has essentially anointed Ronald Jones as the guy. It's going to be very difficult for Keyshawn Vaughn to get off to a fast start. And don't forget, Dare Ogunbowale, the pass catcher extraordinaire down in Tampa, he is also the special teams captain there, a guy that the team obviously values very much in high regard. Keyshawn Vaughn may not be the worst dynasty pick in the world, Dave, but what does this do to Ronald Jones? What does this do to LaShawn McCoy now that we know Vaughn is going to be opening the season returning kicks, if he's lucky?
Yeah, if he's lucky, he's right. I think you got to consider Dare as a late-round sleeper if you haven't been doing so already. I really think it's going to be Ronald Jones. As you know, we've been kind of touting Jones.
Yeah,
he's going to be moving up drafts. He should be if he hasn't been. But his value in that 5th round was great for a while. I'm assuming he's going to start hitting the 4th round pretty quick.
5'11" right now over the last 2 days of Football Guys.
That's honestly, it has not adjusted to the way it should. He should really be a 4th round pick at the latest. Honestly, like mid-4th right now. Don't you think?
Yeah, well, I think that's a little aggressive, but as we get closer to
I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's 32 NFL teams.
Right.
There's only so many decent running backs, and there's only so many that have the opportunity. He could potentially be a 2.5 down back, maybe a 3 down back.
I thought I smelled something, and I was right. It's a would you rather that we're about to play right now here,
right.
Dave. Dave, would you rather have Ronald Jones or Cam Akers?
Jones.
Ronald Jones or Devin Singletary?
Man, a while ago it was definitely Singletary, but at this point they're talking up Zach Moss so much, and
I'm going to stop you right there.
I think I'll take Jones.
Okay, I want to get your Bills running back analysis, but just in a little bit because we got some Zach Moss news. Okay, so you're taking Jones there. Ronald Jones or David Montgomery? The guy who made Frank LaPrade throw up in his mouth when he had to take him in Pros versus Jones.
I think I honestly might take Jones.
Okay, that's fine. Ronald Jones or a guy I think you're high on, DeAndre Swift. Remember, he had the leg injury.
Right. I'm a lot of these would you rather's is like I get hyped up on a guy and then I always take
it's great. It makes for great radio.
I'll take Ronald Jones here over Swift.
I'm going to keep going.
But I think that one's pretty close because I think Swift runs with that job, so to speak, and in real life.
You know, they also signed Jonathan Williams. Remember that guy?
Oh, yeah.
He's now a Detroit Lion. Ronald Jones or Kareem Hunt, the backup in Cleveland.
I'll take Jones, but I do like Hunt quite a bit.
Oh, this is great. Ronald Jones. I keep going up the board, Dave. Ronald Jones or Melvin Gordon? Ronald Jones, running back 28, Melvin Gordon, running back 22 right now.
Honestly, I think Melvin Gordon is looking at having a colossal bust type of season.
I think we have to put 5 on.
Lindsey's a really good value. I think that you should be looking at Lindsey. I'm taking Jones. Forget it. I would pass on Melvin Gordon.
All right, that's fine.
And he's dinged up right now. He's out for a little bit.
Yeah, it was a rib injury, I think, is what they're reporting. I'm going to keep going until you say somebody else. Ronald Jones or Chris Carson?
I'll take Carson.
Okay, so I guess we're going to stop there. But Chris Carson is going at the 404 right now. Ronald Jones, 5'11".
Yeah, so that was actually...
And that is where you said Jones should be going.
Good, I'm glad. That actually worked out nicely, though. Because then you're getting into the Le'Veon Bell type territory, David Johnson, and at that point you have to go with people who are a little more proven, in my opinion.
Okay. Our good buddy Two-Packer chiming in the chat room right now. Gimme Vaughn, show him the heater, Ricky. That is a Major League reference. Dave, you're familiar with that movie, right? Major League?
Yep.
He says, block the noise. Reporters need clickbait material. Non-hashtag sheeple rankings isn't buying any of this.
Uh-huh.
I feel like you guys should be going, I got 5 on it with Ronald Jones and Keyshawn Vaughn. But that's not fair. There's got to be a way to do it.
How about this? I'll take Ronald Jones. He can take Keyshawn Vaughn and his former love interest,
Sony Michel.
He have their combined points.
That's good. I think we're onto something here for sure.
I might even throw Damian Harris in there.
Oh, okay. Now you're getting a little out of control. I'm going to stop you there because we're going to make some wagers coming up later on in the show. The Athletic. Chad Graff, he's the Vikings reporter there. He says Justin Jefferson, quote...
Did you have to pay for this?
No, I think The Athletic is... okay, so number one, I'm not sure if it's still free or not. Number two, I get a free subscription paid for by my local radio station.
Is it really?
95.3 and 99.1 The Score on the FM dial here in Northeast Wisconsin. It is a pay. The Athletic is... Yeah.
Good for you.
But Chad Graff saying...
ask for your login. I'm not one of those type of people.
I won't tell you on air, and wink, wink, I won't tell you off air. Justin Jefferson, I think I'm being thrown in journalist jail right now for saying something like that. Justin Jefferson is the, quote, clear number 3 option behind Adam Thielen and B.C. Johnson during Minnesota Vikings practice. Now, obviously we thought when the Vikings used a first-round pick on Justin Jefferson, he probably was going to be the odds-on favorite to be the number 2 receiver opposite Adam Thielen. But reportedly, he, quote, hasn't shined against the second-team defense quite as much as you'd expect. The Vikings utilized the second highest rate of 12 personnel last year as their base offense, and they're probably going to be doing that again in 2020 with Gary Kubiak being the OC there. Justin Jefferson right now, Dave, is coming in at wide receiver 53 at the 1202 in Football Guys drafts over the last 2 days. We want to thank Fantasy Mojo and Darren Armani, fantasymojo.com, for this impeccable FFPC and Football Guys ADP. He's got FFPC main event ADP on there as well. It's fantastic. And Justin Jefferson at the 1202, Dave, you have always been the champion of, well, who's the starter, Bulky? Who's starting there? It's not Justin Jefferson. It's B.C. Johnson. Number one, is there fantasy value in the number 2 receiver for Minnesota? And number 2, would you rather have Jefferson or B.C. Johnson at this point?
Man, I think B.C. Johnson is probably almost undrafted at this. Is he being drafted?
I don't believe so. I'm going to look it up right now.
I guess he gets into the mix of being drafted. I guess I would take Jefferson.
Not in Football Guys. He's not.
Just from the pedigree, I would take Jefferson because he is being drafted. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, I wouldn't take Jefferson as ADP at all. And I think really B.C. Johnson, especially in best ball leagues, should be getting drafted late. And I don't think I'm not sure how long it's going to last for 20 rounders. I don't know if I'd get into that so much.
Here's the former question then. Is there any value in the Minnesota number 2 receiver in a 20-round managed team format?
I mean, there could be. I don't know if there will be this year, necessarily, because one thing that lends a little credence to is that maybe Kyle Rudolph is a little bit, being ignored as he's a late pick.
Very late, yeah.
So if he's out there on
1706.
The 12 personnel, I mean, he might get targeted a little bit more than people think.
Who's a better draft value with Minnesota tight ends right now, Dave? Is it Kyle Rudolph at the 1706 as tight end 29, or is it tight end 22 at the 1205, Irv Smith, the guy who's probably 21, 22 years old, but has the name of a man 30 years his senior?
I think Rudolph might be the value from my perspective. I think a number of people would probably say the opposite. They would think that the upside of Irv Smith, because I don't know. I've never been a huge Irv Smith guy, and I'm probably still not totally on board that train. Although I would draft him. I mean, if he fell a little bit, and I was trying to assemble 3 up-and-comer type guys.
As is your way sometimes. In Kentucky, which we might see you do next weekend. I'm going to end this conversation right now because I think I know how you fall on this. Basically, 2 tight ends going back-to-back. Irv Smith at tight end 22 or Eric Ebron at tight end 23. Who would you rather have?
I think I would take Ebron.
I agree. And you are the Ebron guy, and I'm still agreeing with you on Ebron.
Yeah. One person, I don't know, are we talking about Hawkinson at all this time?
No, you can talk about him right now because we have nothing on the rundown.
I mean, I don't like to say people are off my board, but he's almost off.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I know he's falling, but he's not going to fall enough for me to draft.
The fact that this injury is kind of old and he's still apparently recovering from it, that's no bueno. Are you bumping up any Lions? You bumping up Galladay a little bit? I know you like Marvin Jones.
I can't bump Marvin Jones any higher.
Yeah, I know. You love him. Yeah.
No.
Marvin Jones, the original MJ for Dave Gerzak.
Yeah. I'm not bumping anybody up necessarily, but I think they'll do fine. I mean, maybe out of the backfield you'll have more receptions, but who's that going to be for
right, yeah.
Swift, Johnson, whoever else they just brought in off the street?
Jonathan Williams. We got Ferrell Elliott, the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Commissioner, right around the corner here, ladies and gentlemen. One other thing I want to hit before we get to him. Joe Biscaglia believes, quote, perhaps the impact Zach Moss can have this season is being undersold. Now, I'm going to read this to you. This is according to Joe Biscaglia, who covers the Bills for The Athletic. On Thursday, Devin Singletary lost a fumble, and then Zach Moss put on a show after Singletary was on the sidelines. Remember last year, it was the Devin Singletary and Frank Gore show. It was never the Devin Singletary show, even though he had the workload towards the very end of the season. The Bills seem to like a committee, Dave, and knowing that that Devin Singletary is going right now in the 5th round at the 509 versus Moss, who is going at the 904 as running back 38. Who would you rather have, and is there value in drafting both of them?
Well, this is one of those situations where I think I might not be interested in drafting both. I think maybe just
Moss
just
in the
Moss
9th?
Right now, I
right.
think, yeah. Especially considering that I didn't get Moss in any personal dynasty leagues, which means he's going to do quite well. I was kind of interested in him, but it never worked out. Like I'd pick somebody else or whatever.
All right, so this is the thing that we were touching on earlier. Vic Fangio, who's the Denver Broncos head coach, says he anticipates Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay, quote, playing enough where we really don't have to designate a starter. Zach Stevens had this on Twitter. So your thought on Melvin Gordon versus Phillip Lindsay right now, you love Phillip Lindsay. Melvin Gordon going at the 405 as running back 22. Phillip Lindsay going all the way down at the 812 as running back 37. You're not going to invest, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not going to draft both these guys. You're just taking Lindsay if you're taking any of them.
That is correct. Although it is tightening, but it's not tight enough.
Yeah.
I mean, all Lindsay has really done in his career is overperform. Plus, he's put on some weight this offseason, from what I understand.
The other thing, too, that, he didn't catch a lot of passes, but he was coming off that really nasty wrist injury last year. And I know I'm guilty of this. Like, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago on the show, I was lamenting all my early drafting season Phillip Lindsay shares. I've actually warmed up to that.
Yeah.
Where I feel like, you know what, it's probably not it's not great. But it's not the worst thing in the world right now.
Yeah, he definitely has standalone value, which is nice. And they bring in Melvin Gordon, they pay him whatever they paid him, and then
2 years, $10 million, 2 years, $20 million.
It's had to be more like the 2 years, $20 million.
I think it's 2 years, $20 million.
But they pay him the pretty big money, and then they see him on the practice field together, and they probably are looking at him like realizing, the guy we had is actually better than this guy off the street. And I'm not saying he is, but I mean he's at least in that neighborhood. And he's been a high motor, high effort, high energy guy, and all he's ever done is outperform. And I don't see him underperforming this year when it's just not been the way. I mean, he's a great pro. Phillip Lindsay's a great pro.
Melvin Gordon or Kareem Hunt?
Gordon, I guess.
This is close for me.
Who do you like? Do you like Hunt?
I don't know.
Well, if you're pausing that long, you like Hunt.
Maybe I do like Hunt. Maybe I like Hunt better. All right, you know what? Enough of us making terrible long pause radio. Let's get into the guy where you never get terrible long pauses. It is all action all the time. He is a longtime NFL player and musician agent. He's also the commissioner of the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, an event now in its 19th year. It's expanded to other states and other countries. Quite frankly, other continents is taking registrations now for both online drafts and live drafts. The Cincinnati live drafts are full. The Louisville one, I believe there are 7 spots left in there. You hear him on the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship podcast that he hosts with players Rob Fetcher and Justin McCord. You know him as the unofficial third host of this show. My pleasure to welcome back onto these airwaves, Commissioner Ferrell Elliott. Commissioner, good evening.
Good evening, fellas. I tell you, my annual call-up from the minors is always such a thrill. I'm happy to be here.
We expanded rosters this year because of COVID, so you can be called up at any point, Ferrell. So tonight's
and go
your
on
big
the
night.
practice squad. Yeah.
Right, exactly, yeah. And by the way, if we put you on IR, you might be called up the week after. There's no restrictions.
It can happen.
We'll see what happens.
It's no restrictions. Balky, you've been reading the player agent handbook. Very impressive. I'm going to have to call on you during the season.
I'm in training on that. You know, I'm an apprentice at this point. We'll see if I can ever graduate there. You mentioned it. It's an interesting year for fantasy football and for fantasy football live events. Ferrell, can you tell the listeners how you think? Go ahead. Yeah, Dave.
Ferrell, tell us what you do for a living.
But
wait a minute.
So I had this great interview. This great interview going, and you had to totally zing me on that.
All right, go ahead.
If somebody's been on the show before, I typically don't reintroduce them to the listeners. Ferrell's been on the show long enough. Ferrell, the live events in Cincinnati, congratulations on a sellout there. Louisville looks like it's going to be a sellout here shortly. If people don't, if people want to get in, they need to do it now. How are those live events going to be different this year in the ballrooms for players that had participated in them before and are now showing up again to do it this year?
My favorite phrase and the thing that I'm going to have to learn to live with, social distancing, Balky. The room is going to be big. Over at Caesars, they prefer that I talked about our U's or drafting squares and call them horseshoes. But we've got 4 of them where we used to have 6, maybe as many as 8 in past years. We've stretched the schedule out. We start earlier in the morning. We're going later at night. And some guys that just love to draft are signing up and working around the clock to pick their teams. So we're going to miss some guys. There's some guys that do not want to travel. There's some guys that just do not want to mix in bigger crowds. But our crowd is relatively, as far as people in the room, we're going to be a smaller event than we've been in the past at any one time on the clock. But at the end of the day, we're going to be very, very close to the live numbers we've always had. And then online is probably going to make our event even bigger this year than it was last year. And that's taken a lot of work and a lot of positiveness, and I'm really excited about it.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Seriously.
That's all about positivity. I'm actually excited, too, because, when I go down to Louisville, I always want to draft as much as possible. Now with the expanded schedule, I definitely can do that. It is literally going to be – I was talking with Commish Bryce, Dave, about this, and I said, before I'd go down there, and I thought 3 drafts in a day was kind of taxing, but I figured I could probably do 4. Now, I have done 4 in a day before, but for all these drafts I'm doing in Kentucky this weekend, it is going to be a mental exercise, in one that I'm going to enjoy. But in order to get all these drafts in, I'm doing at least one Midnight Madness draft out there, too.
You're crazy.
Yeah, I might be crazy, but crazy in a good way. I can't wait to see everybody.
I'm happily going the opposite direction. No offense to Ferrell. I love it, but I do enjoy actually having some time to gamble, relax.
Right.
I mean, granted, I have to work and stuff, too, because of FFPC.
Well, and it's a Caesars property this year, which means we get a sports book there, which is awesome.
The sports book is going to be, I'm excited about that. That'll be great. And also the restaurants. I mean, Binion Steakhouse. I'm going to try and eat there three nights. I'm going to see if I can.
Yeah, I'm not going to pull that off. But they got those Kentucky bourbon flights there that I love.
Oh yeah, nice.
You pair that with a frickin' tenderloin. It's,
too bad you'll be drafting instead of eating.
Well, no, I will be eating at some point. No, at some point I will be eating there for sure. Dave, one of the interesting things about Kentucky this year is it's not necessarily an arms race in the early rounds. As far as receivers go, there's actually been another position that people have been targeting.
Oh, yeah, there is another position.
All right, just move on.
Hey, Ferrell, let me know, why do you think Rob Gronkowski is a good pick for someone who waits until 10 tight ends are off the board?
Well, he'll have to be if you're going to wait. I'm in a very small subset of people that really believe that Gronk's going to have an amazingly good season, and everybody gives me a blank, incredulous look when I say it. And he's for lack of a better word, he's my sleeper pick. I think everyone's sleeping on him, and I see 70 catches and some touchdowns. So I think it's a fine pick.
What about the recent news that Gronk might be on a snap count?
These guys got to write about something, Dave. And if you know sports writers like I know sports writers, they sit around making things up. They really do. They take one piece of information, and if they can get some free alcohol in them, by the time that they finish drinking, they've got a story. And so don't believe any of it.
And
that's what I would say.
A bunch of Hemingways.
Yeah, exactly. I was talking with Ferrell, Elliott, the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship Commissioner. Ferrell, we've talked about this the last couple of years, and there was sort of a mini running back renaissance after everybody was so excited to draft receivers early on. But this year, if you look at some of the Kentucky boards, it's been dominated by running backs, not only in the first round, but in the second round as well. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's been such a shift in Kentucky to getting these bell cow running backs in the first couple of rounds and then, having drafters attack the wide receiver position later?
Yeah, a lot of green going off that board very, very early, and Michael Thomas seems to be the only regular first rounder, and he dropped to the 10th position the other night, which I think is as far as I've seen him go. Guys, it's supply and demand. There's not a whole lot of running backs that are going to stay on the field for all three downs. And even when you hear it from a coach, we hear Gruden say that Jacobs is going to get more in the passing game this year, but no one seems to believe it. And we saw Fournette catch a lot of balls last year, but nobody thinks he will again. And Derrick Henry, you add in the playoffs, he's coming off a season with 400 touches. He's as big as a freight train, but at some point in time that adds up. But these players, they can't be handcuffed. They can't. There's no substitute for this kind of player and this kind of volume that he gets. So, if you're going to grab you one, you better grab him early, and that's what's happening. And there's not a lot of guys like that after him. I just was doing one of your slow drafts. I've told Dave I've now become the slow draft junkie. And it's a wonderful thing. And then, I took Matt Breida. And it's hard to get excited about taking Matt Breida, but the Miami Dolphins acquired him. He's going to split he's going to split service with Howard down there, but maybe he can beat out Howard for that position. And so that's what you're looking at in the 8th or 9th round, and that's not very exciting. So, you want to get you some of that early running back action.
Yeah, no, it makes sense a lot of times. And then the question, Dave, is how do you protect that investment, right?
Yeah, well, Ferrell, you kind of mentioned that just a minute or two ago that you can't really handcuff these guys. Is that kind of your general opinion that because of the caliber of the running back is so good in those first 2 or 3 rounds that there's just not equivalent talent later, even in playing backup?
Yeah, Madison, who did it when Cook went on the shelf, is a capable handcuff. And Dave, your standalone value, I heard you say that earlier. And Latavius Murray shined when Kamara went to the bench. There are some, but they're just not. There's just not a great number of them available, and you still have to give up a pretty impressive draft pick to draft capital to get those guys, 8th or 9th round. If not sooner. So, it's a tough decision. I don't want to take a ball player, take a running back in the 1st and 2nd round, and have to be concerned about a single-digit handcuff. Go ahead if you really want depth at your running back position. Take 3 good ones and hope that they all stay healthy. And if 2 of them stay healthy, you're still in the business. That's how I would approach it.
Yeah, it makes sense, and I totally get that. Ferrell, Elliott, the commissioner of the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. If you want to get involved either online or live in Louisville coming up next weekend, go to KFFSC.com. There are 7 spots left in that main event where you can compete for a $15,000 grand prize. Always a great time, especially drafting live in Louisville. Regardless of physical distancing, I know I'm going to have a tremendous time. You will too. Raheem Mostert, Ferrell, is the first running back going off the board for the 49ers this season in FFPC drafts. Tevin Coleman's actually, he's had his ADP go up a little bit recently. How do you sort of see the touches in this backfield shaking out this season between Mostert, Coleman, and the rest of the dreck the Niners are trotting out there?
I watched Mostert run through, around, and over the Green Bay Packers in the NFC playoffs, and that image is not leaving my mind. So Mostert should be the first guy off out of that San Francisco 49er backfield, and I think it would be foolish for a 49er coaching staff to keep him on the sidelines for too many plays. So I'm comfortable drafting Mostert where he's going, early 5th round. Coleman's a good player. I like him, but Mostert is the man for me out there. I think we're looking maybe at 225 carries, and with his ability for big games, you're going to get paid back in fantasy points for choosing Mostert.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, too. I mean, Raheem Mostert, who is the lead running back for a team that went to the Super Bowl last year, that should be in the mix to go to the Super Bowl again this year. You'd think they'd be salting a lot of games away with the rushing attack. And quite frankly, they beat teams last year with the running game. Raheem Mostert, running back 30 at 5'12 right now over the last 2 days in the Football Guys Players Championship, certainly screams value there. Tevin Coleman, I mean, if you want to get him, you can. Running back 41 at the 909, that's Alexander Madison, Latavius Murray, Tony Pollard territory there with the rest of the handcuffs, Dave, going at the end of the 9th round. That's where Coleman's going. I'm not really sure I'm interested in any other Niners running back other than those two.
Yeah, I'm not. I personally have no interest at all in Tevin Coleman. If I'm playing someone and I look at it on his team and I see Tevin Coleman on it, he's a starter.
Unless, like, Mostert's healthy, then
Even if Mostert was hurt, I'd be like, oh,
really?
Big deal.
Okay.
When has Tevin Coleman ever been on a championship-winning team in weeks 15 or 16?
Ferrell, who is the guy he was paired with in Atlanta? Was that Freeman for a few years?
Yeah, Freeman.
Yes.
And
like, Freeman won that
I feel
battle.
like
Freeman took it away and then couldn't hold it.
I think I've had Tevin Coleman on too many dynasty teams that I'm planting my flag on Tevin Coleman right now. Yeah. Where he has my undying love at this point. I can't
More
get
like
enough
your
Tevin
tombstone
Coleman.
Instead of a flag.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Anyway, it's fine. I mean, whatever. But I like Mostert. I think he's a good value at that spot. I totally agree with Ferrell there.
Yeah, no, dude. Late 5th round for somebody like that makes a lot of sense. In
my opinion, maybe it's because of there's so many running backs going early. And then you have that receiver run that's really kind of wicked that goes right through the 3rd, 4th, 5th round.
Yeah.
So then some of those running backs that, they just kind of drop. There's a little bit of a running back drop-off.
Well, we've been talking about this level. I mean, this is the Montgomery, Singletary, Akers, Jones, Ingram level, and then Mostert sort of ends that tier.
Yeah, which I find interesting. He should really be more in. He's got a few warts, and he's not a big pass catcher. But.
Well, you remember how many weeks on the show we've been talking about Ingram and Dobbins were going back-to-back for forever? Yeah. Mostert's now split those guys. He's right in between them now at this point. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about DeAndre Hopkins. He's on a new team. He's got a new quarterback, and he's got a new offense. He's going in the late 2nd round, I believe. What do you think, Ferrell? I mean, he used to be going in the 1st round. Now he's a late 2nd round pick. Is that a good discount, or is it still pricey?
208 right now for his ADP.
Guys, he still should be going in the 1st round as far as I'm concerned. That's the biggest steal in the 2nd round. In one of your drafts the other night, I got him the last pick of the 2nd round. I was so thrilled. It's a situation where it's new, it's different. The coach and the quarterback are young, new to the NFL. They're learning the game. Some people that really know this game in the NFL believe that Murray can be number 1 quarterback in the league. And so you take a player that can be that in an offense that wants to throw the ball all the time and put one of the greatest pass catchers that has ever played. And that's what, as much as I think about Hopkins, this is one of the finest players that's ever been on the field. And you can get him as your 2nd player on your fantasy team. This is great. So, yeah, you can't overspend for Hopkins. And if you can get him in the second round, you're on your way.
Ferrell, are you, based on that, are you kind of less excited about Christian Kirk taking another step this year because Hopkins is going to be the number one guy there?
Well, the quarterback's going to spin it 650 times, Balky. They're going to throw the ball all over the place. So, Kirk will get his share too. I don't know what it'll be. But, anytime you're looking at someone from Arizona's offense and you're getting them below their ADP, if you think you're getting a bargain, you probably are. It's reason to think that.
Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship Commissioner Ferrell Elliott joining the program tonight. Ferrell, you knew that I was not going to bring you on this program without having you answer a Las Vegas Raiders question for us tonight.
And
I think this is probably the most polarizing one right now is how people feel about this receiver core. Now, they take Ruggs early in the first round, but Brian Edwards is getting a lot of fantasy love over the last week or two in the FFPC. And then don't forget about Tyrell Williams there as well. Can you kind of help us sort through this mess and sort of tell us who you're targeting as far as Raiders receivers go this year?
I'm going to target the whole receiver core because I think they're going to have a very good year, but they're going to have a very good year with none of them catching as many as 60 balls. We have a wide receiver core by committee, and it could be a different guy every week, and that's the way they want it. And, that's a good problem to have if you're an NFL team. They've got talent at this position. They keep drafting it. You take an NFL coach like Gruden with a 10-year contract, and so he approaches the draft each year. He says, well, I'm going to get my receivers this year. Next year he'll get his linemen. Next year he'll get his defensive back. And, in 5 years he's going to have the team that he wants at every position and every player, and it'll be great. And that's exactly what he's got at wide receiver. He loves all of them. All of them are going to play. None of them are really going to separate themselves from the pack. And so I think you should separate the Raiders receivers from your cheat sheet because they're not going to help you very much.
Yeah, not to mention, too, the tight ends they have there in Waller and Witten, and then obviously Lynn Bowden and Hunter Renfrow there. And Jalen Richard catching a lot of passes. Plus, they want to get Josh Jacobs involved more in the passing game. Maybe the target there is Derek Carr late since he should be throwing the football a lot this season. Ferrell,
Raiders. I want to keep talking about the Raiders, Balky.
Well, I don't know. I'll tell you this. I don't know if this next question involves the Raiders, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Oh. Our good buddy Kevin Williamson, Bourbon City Ballers, in the chat room tonight. Oh, yeah. He wants to know what you thought of the 6 wide receiver start from the 12-hole in Thursday's KFFSC online league. Good decision, bad decision, indifferent. What did you think about that?
Well, you got to consider the source of those decisions. So when you see something that's an outlier, you say, where's this coming from? And it came from the brilliant mind of our Windy City native, John Rozek. And so when Rozek does it, he's got to have a reason for doing it. I've seen him do it with running backs. I've seen him start the draft with 5 running backs. He starts the draft with 6 receivers. He's going to start 4 of them week 1. 2 guys are on his bench. I looked at his running backs. They all had they all had 10 or 12 point value, but maybe he sees something in them that we don't see. But John is a player that eventually, one year, will probably win the KFFSC. He's won a lot of things in Las Vegas with you guys, and he's done well with us throughout the years, and he'll do well with that team too. He's a good evaluator of talent. Maybe go ahead, Dan.
Well, I was just saying he was probably drunk.
Okay, all right. So, no, here's the thing.
Go ahead, Ferrell, go back.
Well, Bourbon City Baller would approve of that too. But I don't want to do it. I've taken running backs on teams in Las Vegas before that I can say that I probably should have been just as well off to have started with 6 receivers. So congratulations to John. He's going to do it his own way, and he's got several teams with us, and probably next time he'll go all running backs.
Far be it from me to criticize the Toyota Fantasy Football Hall of Famer, John Rozek, here. But I will say this. I have drafted next to him live in Louisville before in the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, and I've seen him have his clock run down to 10 seconds or 5 seconds when he's already had 3 running backs, when he's already had 4 receivers, and then he goes with a 4th running back, and he goes with a 5th receiver, and he'll just say, let's try this and see how this turns out. Just matter-of-factly, like some sort of like a scientist trying to develop the COVID-19 vaccine, Dave. It's like, let's try this. Maybe this. And by the way, it's worked out for Rozek plenty of times over the years when he's done stuff like this.
Yeah,
so
he's a shoulder shrugger.
He is. Maybe this will work out. Quite frankly, it usually does.
Yeah, it's great
for him, no question. Dave, we've made it this long talking to Ferrell without basically talking about any first-round picks. I do want to talk about a polarizing one right now with him, if you don't mind you asking that question.
No problem at all. Ferrell, you said that Hopkins should be a player in the first round, so maybe this player should be in the second round, where Hopkins is. What do you think of Clyde Edwards-Helaire going right in the middle, smack dab in the middle of the first round? Actually, maybe he's not. Is it 107?
Yeah, 107. Yep.
107. So he's not quite smack dab.
108, actually. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
So 7-8, right in that range. What do you think? Edwards-Helaire, is he should be drafted there?
It's not for me, guys. I think the fellas drafting him have probably watched a whole lot of college football, and they've been happy with what they see. And you have to assume that he's going to get so many chances. He's going to be a busy player as a rookie player. I've seen a lot of rookies hit the wall. I've seen coaches that believe rookies will hit the wall even though they haven't. They'll start, what'd you say about Gronkowski, a snap count? Well, we'll have that for a rookie running back as well. But, guy, he's got so many great skills, but if you pay for them, if you pay for those skills with a middle to middle late first round pick, you're already paying for what he's going to do for you. And I think there's plenty of guys around him that are proven players that have a little better chance of giving you stability at that position. But you know what? It wouldn't be unheard of for a rookie running back to come into the league, take many opportunities that he's going to get, and do something with them to put himself, in that neighborhood of performance of Elliott and Barkley and McCaffrey. So, if you're going to swing for the fences and you want to win that big payday at the FFPC, maybe you have the team with this player on it. But if you want him and you're in the first round, you got to draft him in the first round because he's not coming out of it, is he?
No, he's not. He's there to stay. The only way he falls out, Dave, and I feel free to disagree with me, but that Thursday night opening game when the Chiefs square off against the Texans, if Edwards-Helaire has something like 10 or 11 carries for like 30 yards and maybe 2 catches for 10 yards, no touchdowns, then I think you could see him plummet a little bit.
Yeah.
Quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, he'd be a dropper.
Yeah, he would be a
you
dropper.
Remember when
sure.
it happened to Chris Johnson? He had a terrible game opening up on a Thursday night, and he dropped, and that drop allowed the rest of his season was so golden it allowed a lot of people to advance to championships that got him late.
I forgot about that.
To back Ferrell's point up about proven players going after Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you have, just as far as running backs go, Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders, Joe Mixon, Kenyon Drake, Josh Jacobs, all going after him. And if you want to lump in other decisions, Travis Kelce, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, all going after Clyde Edwards-Helaire in Football Guys drafts over the last 2 days. We're talking with Ferrell Elliott, the commissioner of the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. Still a little bit of time if you want to draft live in Louisville, if you want to draft online too, KFFSC.com is where you want to go for that. So, Ferrell, I know you draft every single year. Talk a little bit about a player that will not find, and other than Edwards-Helaire, obviously, a player that will not find his way on your teams in the early rounds in your drafts, and then a player that you've actually been targeting and trying to acquire once we get to the middle part and latter parts of fantasy football drafts this season.
So, difficult question for me because, I just love all the players. So I got to find somebody that I really don't want. I'm going to go with Chubb. He's very popular, so I'll be against the grain there, and it's just because of the other running back there. And I expect the quarterback Mayfield to have a better year this year. The whole team should be better, but I just don't think that Chubb is going to do enough for me. I might be wrong. Big numbers, a lot of touchdowns. The potential's there, but Chubb is not a player that I'm going to look for. A player that I am targeting that, you guys spoke of him earlier, Galladay. I don't think he can be overdrafted. We talked about Mostert, and I do really appreciate and love Mostert. I cannot get in a position in this draft to get Austin Eckler on my team. I have not had a draft position where that would pay off and make sense, and Eckler is a player that I'd like to have. I could go on and on about players that I really would love to be in business with, and that's why you should be like me, folks, and just keep buying teams, because that's what makes it fun. Eventually, I'm going to get some of these guys on my roster.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not acquiring them on teams, the only way you're going to acquire them is to acquire more teams and more players, obviously, and that's something that I have subscribed to over the years, continue to do so this year as well. Dave, final question for Ferrell tonight before we let him get back to all his Kentucky duties.
Yes, Ferrell. Even though Balky said your website a number of times,
KFFSC.com.
If anyone is looking to join any of your live or online leagues, what do you suggest they do? How about you give us your phone number if you want to do that? I know you've done that sometimes in the past, and just let them know how they can get involved.
I never sleep, so it's not a problem to give out the phone number 502-523-5057. Call us up and talk about it. The live event, something that getting to meet you guys and hang out with you. That's a motivation for a number of our people that want to come here and compete with you guys. But it's a situation that live is practically done for this year. We'd like to introduce you to the league online. We have some slow drafts as well that are available. It's a league that I think you would be proud to be part of. It will make you a better player when you come to play in Las Vegas and put you in the winner's circles, and you'll get an early jump on fantasy football season by coming here the week before Labor Day every year. So 502-523-5057. We'll find a place to put you, and you'll have a good time.
KFFSC.com is where to go. You can check out all the leagues that are available there, the main events, the I Want Vegas, so on and so forth. 7 spots left live in Louisville, and then make sure you're joining those online leagues.
There's 7 spots, huh?
Yep, 7 spots for 4 different draft times. So 2 of them are only 1 spot away. Really? So you can definitely jump in on that. And by the way, I'm part of one of those teams. So if you want to compete against the great Balky, you can definitely do that as well.
By the way, Ferrell, before we let you go, I just want to let you know that our good buddy Leroy successfully underwent knee surgery today, and he's in recovery, and he's going to miss the trip. But anyway, he's just putting it all out there that he's in good spirits.
Right.
He's doing well.
Exactly.
By the time September and football season rolls around, Leroy will be out in front of the house skipping rope. It'll be a beautiful thing.
That would be a beautiful thing if that happened for sure. Ferrell Elliott.
Quite a visual I just got.
Yeah, exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, KFFSC.com. Give them a ring, 502-523-5057, and make sure you're participating in Kentucky this year. Ferrell, congratulations on the sellout in Cincinnati. I know you got a big day ahead of you at the casino there tomorrow. I can't wait to see you next weekend live in Louisville at Caesars. It's going to be a blast. It always is. It's one of the highlights of my year. Thank you so much for carving some time out of your schedule this week to join us, and we'll talk to you again real soon, man.
Thank you, gentlemen. See you soon.
See you, Ferrell.
Ferrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, one of our favorite guests. Really the unofficial third I know I said this in the beginning, but he is the unofficial third co-host of this show. Always good to have him on. I'm pumped for Kentucky, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great time. Our good buddy Jim Cole is going to be there this year, and he already told me he's bringing his own home-brewed canned beer this year for me to sample, which I'm very excited about.
Do you get to put that in your little app?
Oh yeah, he's on Untapped. His home
really?
brewery is on Untapped.
That's actually
great. I've already checked in his beers on there. I'm really looking forward to that.
By the way,
he brews a great IPA, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. It's so hoppy and juicy. It's great.
Anyway, I don't like beer, but that's
fine. I'm just telling you, it's really
glad
good.
You enjoy it.
Yeah.
So are you flying on the same flight as me on Thursday?
No,
morning?
because I am flying out early Friday morning.
Oh, you're flying Friday.
Yeah, because I wanted to get in some work on Thursday, and I'm flying out early Friday morning. I think I'm landing shortly before noon, so I'll probably be out there in the early afternoon.
Okay.
So that's where we're going on that. And then Kurt and I are going to go for the old 4-peat in the that we are doing that, right? Kurt and I are still on, because I know Leroy won't be there to lead your team to second place this year.
more like 7th.
Well, whatever. I was being nice. But it's so are you doing that auction by yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing it by myself. I always screw the auction up as it is already with Leroy.
I just always get nervous because you're handling football guys' drafts at the same time and making sure those go off without a hitch.
Yeah. And
then normally Leroy takes over at that point, but that's not going to happen this year.
Well I'll figure it out.
And we won't.
Something's going to happen.
And Two-Packer won't be there, who normally helps everybody catch up on all their picks when he starts drunkenly bidding towards the end of the draft. He won't be there this year, so you can't count on that either.
Yeah, his daughter has something going on. Yeah, so Unfortunately he's going to miss it.
Yeah, that stinks. But I'm excited for the casino this year at Caesars. It's going to be awesome.
It'll be weird. It'll be weird just sitting in a new sports book with Leroy not there. That's be very unusual.
Yeah, I'm trying to think
Ferrell sent me a picture of it. Did you see it?
Oh, he sent me awesome. It looks unbelievable.
Yeah, it's great, man.
That big wall in front of you.
And plus, when he sent the picture, there was no one in it. So I mean, speaking of the COVID thing, it doesn't seem like it's going to be. There's not going to be anyone in the thing. There's not any preseason going on.
Right. Yeah.
So it'll be like us, and five people.
You know what's so great is with all the drafts I'm doing, in between every draft, I think I'll be able to go in, place some bets, and then go draft, go pick up my tickets, place bets for the night, because there's going to be NBA playoffs.
Yeah.
There's going to be Major League Baseball. There's going to be NHL going on. Is the Indy 500 this weekend, isn't it? Damn it.
I don't know.
That would have been fun to bet on. Maybe some NASCAR. Get in on that next weekend. It'll be great.
Bet the horses.
Bet the ponies. Yeah, that'll be fun.
The ponies.
Whatever it is. What's the big one?
Actually, a Labor Day weekend is the Kentucky Derby. Is that right? Because remember it got moved.
So I'm gonna miss that. Son of a gun.
Why were you?
Well, we got the Labor Day Draft-a-thon. I'll be pulled up in my office.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
By the way, speaking of the Labor Day Draft-a-thon, my daughter Ella is she is helping to run that this year, and is for the Harbor House Domestic Abuse Shelter in Appleton, Wisconsin. So that's it's kind of a place close to home for us.
Right.
$50 per draft. Usually raise like $7,000-8,000. So that'll be really helpful.
Yeah, that will be. And actually, I think I mentioned this on the show. The woman who runs that, who's in charge of it, actually I went to high school with her.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and she was working in Madison for a while. She took this position this past year,
cool.
And she's running it now. So
nice.
My wife actually just ran into her. She's a incredibly intelligent young woman, and certainly they have their head on their shoulders there with her in charge. Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Let's get to some emails here tonight, Dave. And the first one is from Gary.
In Gary, Indiana?
Nope, he's in Armstrong, Illinois.
Darn.
Which probably isn't that far from Gary, Indiana.
It might not be.
He writes, they're dropping like flies in San Fran. Who are the 49ers wide receivers you guys are targeting? All right, so I'm going to just kind of tackle this first here, Dave. A few days before Jalen Hurd tore his ACL, Kyle Shanahan said, it's going to be a stretch for Deebo Samuel, and I'm paraphrasing here, obviously. It's going to be a stretch for Deebo Samuel to be ready right away. A few days later, Jalen Hurd tears his ACL, is out for the season. And then after that, Kyle Shanahan said, yeah, we're hoping he's ready for week 1. Wait, what? Did his knee all of a sudden get better in those 72 hours? What the hell happened there?
He looked at his depth chart. He's like, Kendrick Bourne?
Well, and not only that, look at all the schlubs that they've signed lately. You know,
who have they all signed?
J.J. Nelson's one of them. I'm going to look this up right
that's
now.
Fine.
But J.J. Nelson's one of them. It's all these like retread type speed guys. Mm-hmm. You know that you know, obviously we're on the waiver wire for a specific reason because they're no bueno.
They suck.
Yeah, they're not good. And so I think that's kind of a detriment to the Niners this year and their receivers, especially talking about whether Deebo Samuel's actually ready. You know, it's fine that they say, oh, he's going to be ready by week 1, but is he really going to be? I don't know. Richie James, who is already on their roster, is going to begin the season on the PUP list. He's officially out the first 6 games. You mentioned Kendrick Bourne. He's actually been showing off so far in practice, looking good. They have the rookie Brandon Ayuk, who is going to be there. Deebo Samuel, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with him. But, Jerron Brown is now a San Francisco 49er. Dante Pettis, I guess, has been performing, up to snuff what they've expected from him. But, Dave, the fact that they're signing all these schlub guys up to snuff. I don't know. Snuffed. Is it snuffed?
You're making a joke, as in like he's so bad that he was killed.
Oh, yeah, well, something like that, yeah. But, okay, so just looking at these Niners receivers here.
I don't want to look at them.
Trent Taylor's their slot guy.
No, it's all
you're avoiding it totally.
Well, not totally. I mean, those guys are all garbage. But, I would consider Deebo as a value and assume that he comes back, just guess that he comes back week 2, 3, or 4. I mean, the thing is, if you draft Deebo Samuel and he's not back until week 4, right? Let's say 4.
Yep.
And it's not like you're not starting anybody. There's somebody else you're starting.
Yep.
And you're going to get at least 10, 12, whatever points out of that person. I mean, come on.
Well, depending upon where you're
who you're drafting and whatever. I mean, you're not hitting. The thing is, Deebo is not going to be taking you through the bye weeks in all likelihood. I mean, there's a slim chance that he just doesn't quite get back, or he's an off season or whatever. So I don't mind Deebo. I'm not as big of a fan of Ayuk myself.
Everybody loves him right now.
Good, they can have him. I'll take somebody else. I mean, it's fine. I mean, maybe he does really well.
Guess on ADP right now for Deebo Samuel. Dave, over the last 2 days in Football Guys drafts, where are people taking Deebo Samuel?
I would say 9-10.
8-12, so not a bad guess. Right. 8-12, wide receiver 40. This is CeeDee Lamb, Jamison Crowder territory. Do you buy there for you?
I think I would prefer Crowder. Probably.
I would prefer Crowder.
I might take Samuel over Lamb, possibly. I don't know.
I think you're right. I think I would agree with that.
Not right or wrong. That's just
How about this one? This is an interesting one. Deebo Samuel, Christian Kirk. Taking Samuel over Kirk?
Oh, man.
I mean, they got Hopkins in Arizona, and, Ferrell just said, Balky, they're going to spin at 600. The quarterback's going to spin at 650 times there.
And he has a good point. I think I might still take Samuel.
Okay. You know who the next player up on the chart is?
I'll take Marvin Jones.
All right, I don't have to ask that one. All right, moving on. Kevin in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Hey, Balky and Dave, is Nick Chubb's concussion affecting where you guys are taking him in drafts right now? Thanks. That is Kevin in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Kevin, thank you so much for the email. I'm going to tell you this. Before we answer if it's affecting us, it's definitely affecting FFPC drafters. Dave, Nick Chubb has plummeted to running back 13 at the 207 right now. That is after Drake, Jacobs, Eckler, right before Aaron Jones and James Conner. Yep. Good spot for Chubb? No.
I thought he was overvalued before the concussion.
Should be going lower.
Yeah, I always thought I like if you like Kareem Hunt it's hard for you to like Chubb as well in that spot. You know what I mean? Like yes. I like Hunt, and I think Chubb's been overvalued the whole time. I'd much rather have Aaron Jones. I'd prefer Connor, Gurley,
Jonathan Taylor.
I'd prefer like Le'Veon Bell. I'd prefer
Fournette.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I just think that I think Chubb with Kareem Hunt is like he's like a 12-point per game player, and that's just not where I want to be.
Would you rather have the head concussed Nick Chubb or the constantly body concussed David Johnson? Who would you rather draft this year? If you can only have one of those guys.
I think at that point it's close, but I might. I feel
like I'm putting you through pain.
I
with
might take
these.
David Johnson anyway.
Okay.
But because there's such a disparity in ADP, it gets then it gets to be kind of like, all right, Gers, you're just being kind of stupid, because if he's going to
you probably won't have to make that decision.
Yeah, if he's going to 207 and then David Johnson goes to like the 403 or something like that.
David Johnson currently at the 401.
401 in that range.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean that's such a disparity that if Chubb fell to like if I had to pick and it was the 401,
you'd take Chubb.
I might take Chubb because it's like the wisdom of the crowd type
right.
of thing.
The hive mind, as Sigmund Bloom and the kids
put together
say.
A team with Chubb at 401 with whatever else you got going on.
Yeah. Two-Packer pointing out that Chubb had several long runs last year that saved games for him, too, something to bear in mind as well. As I don't think we've ever been pro Nick Chubb on this show in general as far as ADP goes.
I mean, I like his talent. I mean, I think he's a really good, high-quality running back, and I know Matt Waldman loves him.
Yep.
But they don't seem like they want to throw to him, and then you put Kareem Hunt in the mix, and that's a big problem.
It's all about situation. It's all about opportunity. And there's certainly a big-time question mark there with Kareem Hunt looming large. All right, Joe in Atlanta writes, Dear Riggo and Clinton. Riggo and Clinton. Any guesses on this?
No.
Running backs?
John Riggins and Clinton Porter.
There you go. Washington running backs. Nice job.
Former Redskins running backs.
Okay.
Well, they were when they were on the team, they were on the Redskins back then.
Is Antonio Gibson worth the hype? What about Bryce Love as a flyer this season? So this is after, obviously, the Geist release. Antonio Gibson been flying up draft boards, Dave. Antonio Gibson, 802, running back 33 right now. Bryce Love has moved up to running back 57 at the 1309. Woof. Yeah.
That's moving up.
He's flying. He's flying up more than Gibson. You like either of those guys at that spot for Washington?
Where's Peterson going?
I was just thinking the same thing. 1204, running back 51.
Man, it's really interesting. It's tough.
It's a bizarre situation.
It seems to me like the team, again, this is what I know right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is, I haven't read the latest news. It seems to me like they like Peterson with Love as kind of the guy behind Peterson, and Gibson still a little bit of a wild card unknown. But Gibson's got a ton of talent. I don't think I'm taking Gibson in the 8th. I maybe would take Bryce Love, and maybe would take Peterson.
All right. So Adrian Peterson got a Veterans Day off this week, and they needed somebody to step in to take the lion's share of the touches and the carries and the snaps in the backfield. It wasn't Gibson. It was Bryce Love.
Sure.
And I think I'm on Bryce Love in the 13th round.
Yeah,
I really like him there. Peterson, the problem I have with Peterson is normally when we get to the double-digit rounds, and this is just my personal draft philosophy, we get to the double-digit rounds, I stop concerning myself with floor, and I don't really look at that a whole lot. And I think that's one of the selling points with Adrian Peterson is he has a semi-high floor. I don't really care about that in the double-digit rounds. I'm looking for potential, not league winners, that's the wrong term, but
makes sense.
But guys who have an unknown ceiling. Bryce Love, to me, right now, has an unknown ceiling.
Yeah, I would take Love over Peterson if I felt pretty good about the rest of my running backs, probably.
Yeah, I mean, if my running backs were shaky, I might go for the stability in Peterson. But if my running backs are shaky heading into the 12th round, I think I've already lost.
Well, that's just
depends who you talk to.
Zero whatever.
Yeah, Zero whatever should be my team name.
That's actually not a bad
team.
Zero whatever.
Zero everything. Yeah.
Zero your mom.
I drafted all linebackers this year. Final email tonight, Norm in Jacksonville. Watching Miles Sanders' stock is like looking at an EKG machine. Where's the best spot to take him knowing we probably won't see him until week 1? Appreciate you. That is Norm in Jacksonville. Norm, we appreciate you too, my friend. Thank you so much for listening. Your thoughts on Miles Sanders it's kind of interesting because he had this lower leg injury. All the reports have been getting saying he's going to be good to go for week 1, Dave. But the fact that we're not going to see him in practices or scrimmages or anything on the football field probably until week 1, it's got to give you a little bit of pause given that this is a first-round pick still.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on – I guess the thing is I would say it depends on how much he falls, but really does it? I mean, it's pretty much like either you're going to take him or you're not.
He's not falling that much at all.
Yeah, it's concerning. It is a bit concerning, especially when they use this vagueness of a lower body injury. What the hell does that mean?
Well, I saw that. Okay, so this is interesting, too, because Philadelphia's been pretty vague on their injuries this season. And Boston Scott, by the way, had a lower leg injury, too, that not a lot of people are talking about. And then, this Goddard thing, he kept missing practices with an upper body injury.
Now Ertz is out, right?
I didn't see the Ertz thing, but
okay.
Maybe. But Goddard has missed several practices with an upper body injury. You know what his upper body injury was?
Huh.
He needs a splint on his finger. And it's not serious, and it sounds like he's going to be going week 1.
Isn't there some sort of – there's no rules or regulation? I know there is in season, but right now they can just say whatever the hell they want?
I don't believe that's correct. I think this is interesting.
They disclose something.
Matt LaFleur, this is something I know from quasi covering the Packers. Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst issued a memo to all the reporters covering the Packers. You could always report on who was practicing with who, the formations, who was practicing with the ones, the twos. They can't do that this year. And this is something that bucks old media trends in Green Bay. And I think that this is something that every team can say to their media, like, if you want to cover us, that's fine, but here's what you can't talk about. I know Denver has it.
So,
I know there's certain things that you can't talk about in the media as far as what you witness at practice there.
So who's mandating this, the team or the NFL?
The team.
not the NFL.
Not the NFL. The team is, because everybody has their own policies on this. But I think what the team can do is, unilaterally restrict. There's only like 5 or 6 reporters that are in the media bubble in Green Bay that can go and cover this team. So it's very easy for these guys to not adhere to these policies, get their press credential revoked, and have somebody else step in for them.
Yeah.
So they're very strict about it. Now I'll just say this right now. So I was reading this article in The Athletic about the Packers, and Matt Schneidman, who does a great job covering them for The Athletic, was talking about training camp standouts, and he got to Jake Hansen, who is the 6th-round rookie center out of Oregon for Green Bay. And he said this guy stood out. And he was very particular about the words he chose. He said, I can't really write about what string this guy is practicing with, so I'll leave that up to you. But he's really stood out in training camp right now.
So he's running with the ones?
Why would you say that
Wow,
unless he's
good.
practicing with the ones?
Wow,
So I think that there's ways around it that you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So getting back to this whole Philadelphia thing right now with Miles Sanders, he currently, I don't even know how we got on this, 109 is where he's going right now.
So about the same. Similar to where he was going before.
But there's other guys you'd rather have over him based on what we know right now with his injury, right? Or what we don't know, more importantly. You'd rather have Joe Mixon than him?
Yeah, but that was before.
Okay, would you rather have Kenyon Drake over Miles Sanders? I would, right now. If I'm drafting tonight or tomorrow.
No, I think I would still take Sanders.
Josh Jacobs.
Sanders.
Yeah, I like Jacobs better. Austin Eckler?
No, Sanders.
Yeah, I think my cutoff there. What'd you think of Hard Knocks this week with Austin Eckler?
I thought it was okay. What about him?
Well, the whole thing about this guy he'd be on the street right now if we didn't have a preseason.
Oh yeah, that was actually a really good point. That was actually pretty cool, and they showed him how well he played and so forth. And he's like a Philip Lindsay type. I mean, he's like Philip Lindsay.
He's going way higher than Lindsay.
But I'm saying he's like where Philip Lindsay, if the things had gone well for Lindsay.
Right.
Oddly enough, Melvin Gordon involved in both.
Both those guys were undrafted, right? Eckler and Lindsay.
I thought maybe Eckler was a 7th-round pick.
Okay, all right.
But whatever, close enough.
Yeah.
Right? But I feel like Lindsay, that could be his end game. I mean, Melvin Gordon could actually get stiffed. He could end up leaving the team, and then Lindsay could end up taking the reins. But anyway, Eckler, it's pretty impressive. I mean, it's to see how much of a pro he really is.
Yeah.
He's very good.
Yeah, definitely. Hard Knocks episode 2, a far cry from Hard Knocks episode 1.
Yeah, it was a little boring.
Yeah, we'll see what happens on episode 3. If you want your football fix, that is where to get it right now.
It is, yeah, it's good.
Or drafting, Dave, which you can do at myffpc.com. Or listen to this great show. Remember, if you want to sign up for the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, 502-523-5057. That's 502-523-5057.
Freaking infomercial.
KFFSC.com is where to go for that. I want to thank Ferrell Elliott for coming on the show this week. I want to thank Dave Gerzak, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you. Programming notes. We are live in Louisville for the 2020 Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship next week at a special 7-6 Central Time. That's right. We'll be on from 7 until 8 Eastern, and that's live at Caesars Casino in right outside Louisville for the KFFSC. Dave already has a prior engagement, so he cannot make the show that night. I got some stuff in the works for a special, potential multiple co-hosts with me that night. It could be an epic show, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to reveal our hype guy that night. I'll get Dave's input on that, so he'll still have a say in that. It's going to be a fun show. And then right after that, it'll lead into drafting weekend, not only for us, but for you as well. You don't have to wait until next weekend to draft. Remember to book those flights and rooms for Paris, Las Vegas, which is where the home of the FFPC live events will be for the 2020 year. Save $400 off those additional main event teams as well. Don't forget, we have plenty of action. The Football Guys Players Championship, there's a zillion draft times this weekend. Make sure you're popping in before that thing sells out. The Terminator Satellites, the Terminator Regular Drafts, the Super Bracket, Best Ball Leagues, and Dynasty Startups. Remember, only 8 days left for those. So if you want to get a Dynasty Startup or 2 in, now is the time, myffpc.com. We got a midnight draft going on tonight. Be the hero. Only 3 spots left. Yours truly will be commissioning. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Talking with both the Miles Sanders situation, Tupacker chimes in the chat. Miles Sanders was given the number 2 sheeple of all sheeple picks. I believe that's behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And then he writes, then again, I took him at 101 in a football, guys, so what do I know? Not really selling the whole sheeple rankings on
nice
that.
job, Meyer. I love it.
I've mentioned this before, but make sure if you missed the bonus episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, check it out, blogtalkradio.com/HSFF, or you can go to the horse's mouth. HSFFhour.com has that download on there. Basically, anywhere you get podcasts, you can get that as well. Jimmy Wagner, rotoviz.com/podcast for the Rotoviz High Stakes Lowdown. Those will resume in less than a month, and then we'll go weekly until January, which is going to be a lot of fun. Dave, it was a pleasure. We'll talk to you again next week in Louisville. Is this the birdcage that we have on in the studio right now? Am I looking at that right? One of your favorite movies of all time?
It is one of my favorite movies. It started, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to let you get to it. And
I may not really actually watch it, even though I've seen it plenty of times. Love the movie.
Whatever. I got to commission this midnight draft. Whatever you want to do in the studio is totally up to you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you at a special 7/6 Central Time next week. Enjoy drafting this weekend.